Hi, this is Kari Emerick from EDU 590. I am teaching 6th grade science and social studies at Washington Woods Middle School in Holt, Michigan. This is my technology and non-technology lesson comparison. Before I begin teaching my lesson, I created a rubric using rubistar.com. This was my first time using a website to create a rubric, and I found it to be very easy. For those of you that do not use a program to create a rubric, I highly recommend it. They have rubrics already saved that you can use, or you can create your own. For my hypothesis, I think using technology to teach my lesson will be exciting. But since I do not use some of the technology available to me, I expect a little more work. From a student's point of view, I think they are going to enjoy the activities that use technology. They will be able to learn about technology and a plant ecosystem at the same time. For the non-technology lesson, I will feel more comfortable because it is what I am used to. However, I think the kids are going to get bored because it is too simple and there will be no technology to stimulate their brain. I taught a lesson about how to build an ecosystem to support plant life. Since I have 3 different groups of students this year, I chose to use the lesson plan that incorporated technology for 2 of the classes, and I used the lesson plan that did not use technology for the 3rd class. I found that teaching my classes using 2 different strategies made it easier to compare how each one affected the students' learning. After I teach my lesson, the students will be able to know what a plant ecosystem consists of, how a plant ecosystem develops, and what it takes for a plant ecosystem to support life. I used instructional strategies from more.mel.org and instructional strategies from the book, Using Technology with Classroom Instruction That Works. The website offered a bunch of broad strategies, and I would say using them was simple. The strategies from the book were more in-depth, but they were very direct with their examples and explanations. Strategies I use from the book are homework and practice, setting objectives and providing feedback, cooperative learning, and cues, questions, and advanced organizers. To make comparing my lessons easier, I have put them on one slide, but I separated the non-technology part from the technology part. I did this so I would be able to compare them and talk about the pros and cons of not using technology and using technology. I gave each student a pretest of multiple choice questions, so I could see who understood what about plant ecosystems. I used Microsoft Word to create the pretest for the non-technology class, and I made enough copies for each student to have one. They had to circle the correct answer and hand the test in to me so I could grade it. For the technology class, I had them take a test at a computer that was created using a generator. When they were done, I was able to print the score sheet to see how well they did. To type the test for both classes was equally the same, but when it came down to scoring them, I would have to say using technology made it easier. I hardly used any time seeing what the students already knew using the test that was on the computer compared to using one I had to grade myself. When I was finished grading all of the tests, I used the information to put students in groups. I made sure to put at least one person in a group that did well on their pretest. I did this because I wanted to use cooperative learning, and if I could have students help each other out, cooperative learning was being used. For the lecture in my non-technology class, I gave students a handout with the key terms on it that I verbally went over with them. I also gave them handouts with examples of different plant ecosystems. For my class using technology, I used the Elmo to go over key terms and showed students examples of different plant ecosystems. Instead of having handouts, students had to take notes. For those of you that do not know what the Elmo is, it is a digital document reader that projects the document on the whiteboard. This is easy to use because you do not have to make copies or transparencies. You can put any document under it and it will project it. I liked using the Elmo because I did not have to make a bunch of copies, and I think having students take notes increases their learning. Also, using the Elmo will help save on trash and trees. I wanted students to research plant ecosystems, so they would have a better idea of what they are made of. My technology class went to the computer lab to use the internet to research plant ecosystems. When they were done, I had them type what they learned about plant ecosystems using Microsoft Word and turn them in. The biggest difference between the students using technology and the ones not using technology was I was able to read the typed ones easier than the written ones. Before I went over how we are going to build a plant ecosystem, I had the students get in their groups and discuss with each other their findings. I did this so students could compare what they learned and teach each other. After the students went over everything with their group, I went over how we were going to build a plant ecosystem. For the non-technology class, I gave the students a handout with a picture drawn by hand of how we were going to build an ecosystem with a 2-liter bottle. In the picture, they could see the order they had to layer their ecosystem. For the technology class, I created a plant ecosystem at home and took pictures of all of the steps. I then created a PowerPoint presentation to show them how to build the ecosystem. In my pictures, they were able to clearly see what the layers of the ecosystem look like. I liked using the PowerPoint presentation, but it took a lot of time to create it, but it was easier to read than my handout. I also think the kids in the technology class were more engaged. To make sure the students understood how they were going to properly build a plant ecosystem, I gave them all a non-graded test. I did this to see if everyone understood what we were doing, or if I had to review how to build a plant ecosystem. To build a plant ecosystem, I had the groups mark on a shoebox big enough to hold a 2-liter bottle where they needed to make a cut. Then one person spun the bottle as another person held a marker on the bottle to draw a line. After they drew the lines, I put a slit in the bottle with an X-Acto knife and let the students use scissors to finish cutting them. I made sure every person in the group helped out. We are now ready to add the layers to our ecosystem. For the non-technology class, I had the students get their handout out so we could go over what layers had to go in the bottle. Some students could not find their handout, so I had to give them new ones. Using their handouts, most of the students were able to put the layers in the bottles in the correct order. For the technology class, I still had the plan to put the layers in the proper order saved on PowerPoint, so I used the video projector to display the directions on the whiteboard. Using the video projector made it easier for all the students to put the layers in their bottles properly. After their ecosystems were built, all they had to do was water them. For homework, I had my students go home and look for 2 plant ecosystems and compare their ecosystem they just made in class to the ones they found at home. I had the non-technology class go to the library and use books to research what they found and write down the similarities and differences between the ecosystem they just created and the ones they found at home. I had the technology class use the internet to research similarities and differences between the ecosystem they created and the ones they found at home. For the post-test, I gave the students the pre-test again. I did this so I could compare the 2 tests and see how well the students learned. I administered the test the same way, and I think using the test generator was a lot easier. I could print how the students did on both tests and compare them easily. After doing the lesson with and without technology, I think using technology is a better way to go. The only issue I had was it took me a little while to learn and understand how to use some of the technology I used in my lesson. I also noticed the students who used technology seemed to be more excited about learning. It made their lesson seem more independent.